But what we didn't do was apply ourselves to the most important of the three pillars, which is the Aboriginal pillar. If you like, the founding pillar of the three. And you say, well, you know, there's not that many of them. Well, actually, the interesting thing is, having been 2 million and gone down to 175,000, there's now 1.5 million Aboriginals. And they're on their way to 2 million. They're on their way to 3 million. They're on their way to 4 million. I can tell you, we could never have enough Aboriginals in this country. Because the more Aboriginals there are, the stronger the country will be, because it is the founding pillar of the country. The more power... The more power Aboriginals have in Canada, the more balanced and strong the country will be. The more land Aboriginals have in Canada, the healthier the country will be. When I hear arguments saying, I know the Williams case, you know, I can't remember the details now, it was a BC case, and I don't even know it, and I have to make it up because I don't remember. You know, a couple of hundred people in the nation won a case, and they got, was it 4,000 square kilometers or something like that? Does anybody remember? And, you know, there was a lot of complaint in Vancouver in which people said, gosh, that's a lot of very valuable land for not many people. So, let's be European about this. So, suppose it's 400 people. They want to live there. They're Canadian citizens. So we've got 400 Canadian citizens who are willing to live there and want to look after that land so that their grandchildren can live there. Do you think that's worse than, say, having a dozen middle-aged men in New York control it? I mean, which is more useful to Canada? You know? I mean, the whole northern, you know, the whole northern part of Canada, how many Canadians who aren't Aboriginal want to live there? Shouldn't we be thrilled that Aboriginal people who come from there are willing to take responsibility for that land? Wouldn't you like them to own it and take responsibility for it? Isn't that the best possible thing that could happen to us? I mean, here we are saying we want to have sovereignty in the Arctic, but we're not actually putting two and two together. Sovereignty is about taking responsibility for the place in which you live. We have everything to gain by Aboriginals being stronger and stronger in this country. And I think part of that is that we have to come to terms with the fact that we have two national languages, but we also have 54, 55 Canadian languages. Right? I mean, I'm not saying that an Aboriginal has to describe them as Canadian languages. I'm saying from a political point of view, they are languages of this place. And about 45 of them are in danger of disappearing. And there's virtually no government support, virtually no government money to try and help the recovery of these languages. Not the protection. I'm not talking about turning them into an anthropological study. I'm talking about languages which are spoken and used. And there's very little public support for this. And you say, well, why do we need that? Well, I'll tell you why we need that. Because if you have a language that's spoken by 5 people and it disappears, what's disappearing is an open door into a tunnel, into the collective unconscious of this place. Now, the fact that I don't speak it and will never speak it is beside the point. The fact is that the speaking of that language takes us, through those people, into an understanding of this place, which is thousands of years old, you know, truly into the collective unconscious. People stop speaking it, that door closes, we lose it. We become stupider because we have lost that language. We become more ignorant because we have lost that language. So this is really valuable. These languages are valuable to everybody in this country, even though they belong to the people who speak them. So, I'm making an argument for peeling away an interpretation of ourselves, which I think is not true, for rediscovering what's true about us over the thousands of years, and certainly over the last 400 years, which I think would allow us to think about ourselves differently, to think about ourselves as we really are. And if we want to imagine ourselves in this way, it's because I think people do. I think it's because it would reflect our unconscious sense of our real selves, of our real memory. And so that if we are a country of Aboriginal inspiration, in which the Metis people are the model of our complexity, then we have to do something about that. We have to get at our sense of place through philosophical ideas that come out of here, like Wittiskawan, Cree idea about living in the land, as opposed to the European idea, rational idea about being above the land. We have to say this concept of eating from the same bowl explains why we have single-tier health care, whereas other people have private or two-tier health care. That our concept of community is not about charity, which is the European idea. Our idea of community has to do with egalitarianism. That harmony through balanced relationships actually means something if we want the country to mean something. It's the intentional idea of the country coming out of this place. So I think that we function best when we think of ourselves in the concept of the circle, that our idea of immigration is all about people, as Champlain was, being adopted into the circle, into the family, into the community, into the region of the place. As the Shuswap said to Wilfrid Laurier, living together with people. That's the Canadian conversation. It's not written ideology, it's oral conversation. And I think that it's very, very different from the confused attempts to think of Canada in monolithic European, US terms where we would all cheer at the same moment. We can do it during the Olympics, it's easy. That's fine. But in day-to-day real life, that isn't the way this country functions. And we have to understand why we don't function that way. And as a result, don't have civil wars. And don't have a particularly violent society. People often say to me when I say these sorts of things, or when they read the book, they say, well, I've always thought that, but I didn't know how to say it. The job of a writer is to kind of put language out there. Or they say, I never thought that, but I think you're right. And that's because it's in our collective unconscious. So what I'm talking about is, in a sense, creating a new language about ourselves, which is all about revealing a language out of our past. And this can only work if we accept that Aboriginal peoples, they have their own life and their own right to have their own personalities and their own civilizations, but they are also at the core of what Canada always was and needs to be. And I think we can only say how incredibly lucky we are that Aboriginal people are making this remarkable comeback, both in terms of numbers, in terms of education. I know you read the papers, you think everything's a problem. I'm sure there are lots of problems, but you just see, 30, 40 years ago, a handful of Aboriginals in post-secondary education. Today it's 30,000, and it's growing like that. It's remarkable what's happening. Sure, there are problems, but it's still remarkable. And the most important thing about this from a non-Aboriginal point of view is that we had a very interesting first 250 to 300 years, and then we started getting it wrong. And we started acting really badly, in a shameful manner. And now, thanks to Aboriginal people themselves, to luck, to destiny, to toughness, they're back. And that means that Canada's getting a second chance. Not many countries get a second chance to get it right. I think we should be very thankful for that. Thank you.